Okay, Carl, if you're here, we're gonna take a look at your video now. This is, of course, Carl Kaput, and I'm going to. I have not watched this. I have not watched this at all. I told Carl I would do a blind react to it. So here we go. Let's check out Carl Kaput and wild allegations.
I've got something quite interesting to share with you. Several days ago, I received this document that caught my attention.
Oh, let's read it real quick. I have devoted a lot of time and energy into making Lunar Eclipse a fun and safe environment. While I haven't always been the most active due to my schedule, I always tried to pop in when I could and be a positive force, trying to steer the org in what I felt was the right direction. This letter marks the end of my journey with Lunar Eclipse. I'd like to explain why. Some background on myself. For those of you who have gotten to know me, I am not perfect and I don't always get things exactly correct myself. This letter has been edited by the leadership of AFI because I know that I am not perfect. But I like to think that my heart is at least in the right place most of the time. Most disagreements I've had with the decisions about the org I've raised because I don't believe in being silent and living in resentment. At every single chance I've made my voice known when I thought it should be, so that I could make sure the org went in the best possible direction, but always tried to make sure my grievances were behind closed doors and never aired in front of members. However, that ends today. I no longer stand idly by while shady things are continuing to happen in the org behind closed doors. In this short letter, I plan on outlining the most egregious information I have. Ooh. Ooh.
This resulted in an investigation which even resulted in me speaking to a lawyer about the issue regarding consent of recording people in Discord. I've been deeply involved in Lunar Eclipse.
Wait.
It seems
I didn't quite hear what he said.
Involved in Lunar Eclipse. Discord. I've been to a lawyer about the issue regarding consent of recording people in Discord.
Ooh.
I've been deeply involved in Lunar Eclipse. It seems Griefernet has been used to vet people. And there's even talks of members being asked to spy. These are just some examples of what's been said. Now this is something. Lunar Eclipse has recently been through some turbulent times. An open letter
I don't even know who these guys
some
are.
allegations at Griefernet. But here's where it gets weird. It turns out there wasn't any actual griefing as we typically know it. The org faced internal struggles simply because Griefernet members were a part of LE. Quite an unusual situation, isn't it? Wild claims are being made, but are they justified? Or is it just people slinging mud to bolster their ranks? But just quickly before we get into this, please like and subscribe. In the past 28 days, this channel has seen 3.7 returning viewers and 7.4 unique viewers. If you don't, I'll make a video about your org. The leadership of Lunar Eclipse asked another member to record members in voice chats. For what purpose I do not know and care for. I agree that recording shouldn't have happened.
Let's see that again.
I agree that voice chats.
Okay, before asked, I will be providing the name of the person who was asked to do this. They came to me in confidence because they viewed the practice as wrong, something I personally agree with. I've also checked with them and they asked to remain anonymous, something I will happily respect. Please know I do trust them and the information they have brought me was verifiable. I have known now for a short time that the leadership at the top of the org has asked members to spy on others by recording all conversations with them. This is how I knew of part 1 and 2 as well. I should note that when this member asked me to do so, they were not an officer. They were isolated from others and asked to spy on fellow org members for the benefit of someone in leadership. This was something not cleared or even brought up to the staff until this member brought it up to me. I was completely unaware as an XO. I will not fully mention the members this person was told to spy on again for privacy reasons. Like, what the hell? What the hell? This is why I don't do the org shit.
I agree that recording shouldn't have happened, and org leaders should trust their members. However, there may have been some reason as to why I wasn't told why that happened. Was criminal stuff being done? Or was it just paranoia? Collection of evidence is a sensitive subject, and that's not something I'm going to go into. However, the expectation of privacy is a core tenet surrounding consent on recordings. The expectation of privacy generally doesn't exist in Discords, as they can be compared to public places like parks and the street. I spoke to a lawyer in the US about this, Had the recordings happened in a private call that other people have no access to, would certainly break some laws. However, the recordings were made in voice chats accessible to multiple people. There can be no expectation of privacy here, therefore recordings can be argued to happen with no repercussions other than the opinions of other members. Do you want to know the kicker here? The member who did the recordings has been accepted into AFI and now calls that org home. GrieferNet is mentioned 8 times, but claimed it wasn't the focus of the split. GrieferNet members were open about being 8 times, but claimed it.
GrieferNet was mentioned all through the letter 8 times, 8 whole times across 3 pages, and each time is brought up. Past part 2, it's referencing that on top of the issue outlined above. Anyone that reads a letter without trying to look at it like that will see that the whole point is establishing a pattern of shady behavior from Jet. GrieferNet was not a scapegoat, however much you all want it to be. Your reason for leaving is based on 2 members of GrieferNet being in there. Then you claim it's not, while claiming it is, while claiming it's because of Jet. Are you saying you lied in the letter? That is at best misinterpretation of what I said. Wow. Right.
It wasn't the focus of the split.
Carl should just do it. Like, just do, like, every time he does these, as the verse turns. What was another, these are the days of our lives.
GrieferNet members were open about being.
For those not in the know, GrieferNet are not good guys. Their name pretty self-explanatory, and I'm not going to kind of send you, but the TLDR. What does TLDR even mean? I see that come up all the time. I don't even know what the hell it means. And I've never bothered looking it up because it doesn't affect my life in any, like, significant way. Lunar eclipse is currently the too long, dear reader. Oh, okay. This is something people at the highest level of the org know about but refuse to act on. I'll get into specifically why he knows in part 4. This was simply suspected, and the person at the top of this was trying to find out before banning. I would fully understand, but as stated, we have verified 2 members of LE are part of GrieferNet, with no one openly showing us something they admitted they participated in that later showed up on GrieferNet's channel. For now, let's continue to part 2. Okay. Does it really matter if somebody is involved with GrieferNet or PAX or Liberty Reapers because they like PvPing and they like mining salt? Does it really matter? If they join your... Now, granted, let's make one thing clear. If somebody that's part of GrieferNet joins your org or joins your Discord and they are not being asshats and gathering info to crash your community event or your event or whatever, then what does it matter if they're part of another org? What does it matter if they're part of GrieferNet? Does it really matter? Because right now, the only thing I've ever seen GrieferNet do is camp stations and blow up people's events that have no protection. That's all I've ever really seen them do. I'm not saying that there aren't bad things that they do or do not do, but look, I kidnap people in frickin' Star Citizen with several other people that are in this channel right now. I kidnapped people. We made it so that they were basically zombies. Does that make me a bad person? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. Do I do it every single time I'm online in Star Citizen and make a big mockery out of the fact that I know how to do this? I don't. It's fun to do every once in a while, and it also brings up some really good opportunities to play the game. So, I don't know. And on top of that, like, and Grizz just said it. You know, in Stranger Danger and Chaos Squad, they have sound files that they got from, I think it's ITC, that said all pirates are griefers and griefers are pirates. That's not true. That's not true.
In GrieferNet, therefore mitigating the risk of espionage and event crashing. Not only that, but they enjoy multiple ways to play and were simply exercising that right. If they were there to create chaos, they wouldn't have announced they're in GrieferNet. They'd be pretty terrible spies. Using GrieferNet to vet players isn't a bad thing.
This is one of the most egregious things in the letter to me from another member. I know that leadership decided to use GrieferNet to vet people. This now paints a clear picture to me of why the 2 members that leadership knows about have been allowed to stay. And once I got knowledge of this was when I decided to take my leave from the org, only stalling to make sure everything was in order before my departure to protect other members. To me, this is an incredible violation of our members' trust and genuinely disgusting. So basically, this person just has a problem with GrieferNet. That's what his problem is. I can understand wanting to make sure candidates are good, but I cannot stand by utilizing an org with the reputation of taking things too far to vet new members. This is but one example of the toxicity breeding from the top of the org. How is that toxic? How is that toxic?
In fact, it's pretty clever. We have spies in every corner of Star Citizen. GrieferNet don't dox or harass.
Hey, guys, I just want to let you know that if you join my Discord, there is a member of GrieferNet in my Discord. Has any of our stuff ever been crashed? Have they randomly shown up and made sure that we couldn't play the game? It's never happened. It's never happened. Do you want to know why it's never happened? Because the one time that I started getting out of line online in a video game was against somebody that was, and I didn't know at the time, was also with GrieferNet. And you want to know what happened? Some people came to me and said, hey, you know, you were a little out of line. And I was like, yeah, and so-and-so was a little out of line. And you know what happened? They talked to that individual. They talked to me. We kind of, I don't want to say we made amends. I never made amends with the guy. I still think the guy in particular is kind of a dickwad. And I'm trying to be respectful. I still think he's a dickwad because I think he undermines what they're trying to do. Once I've had it explained to me what they're trying to do and how they play the game and what they do in the game, and then I don't think they're bad guys. I don't think they're bad guys. Do I think some of the stuff they do in game is a little on the line and kind of edges over the line? Yeah, I do. But once again, does that... What's up, Adam? Does that make me a bad guy because I've taken stuff to the line and maybe even push it a little over the line? I mean, the kidnapping thing, if you guys have seen it happen, I'm not going to explain it here, but if you've seen me do it on stream, or if you've seen Marcus do... What's up, Mr. E? If you've seen what me and Marcus and Canop were doing, you would think we were horrible people. But at the same time, if you saw what we were doing and how we did it and the options we gave them, you would say, it's pretty shitty, but at least you're giving them a way out. At least... And they have the ultimate way out by being able to Alt F4 and backspace. So what we were doing was not out of the ordinary. And several times these people begged for backup or went to their Discord and got backup. And it turned into some really amazing PvP. So it's not really, I don't know. I just disagree with it being griefing. I really disagree with it. And like I said, some of the stuff they do, it may edge up to the line or maybe even go over to the line. But I don't think they're terrible, horrible people. And, you know, spying is a part, like there's a badge that you can earn on Star Citizen. It's an infiltration badge for spying. So, you know, I'm just saying. And sorry if I am yelling. I don't mean to be yelling. Chrissy, how could you feel so betrayed? Chrissy, JT is right. Chrissy is the real griefer. You know, he is the real griefer.
People. This is misinformation spread by people with vendettas for in-game actions using sarcastic remarks as evidence, one of which is tried to blackmail people. I will not be reporting on this. It's a criminal matter. Anyone who even jokes about it gets dealt with harshly. We at GrieferNet don't condone doxing. It's more dangerous than most people realise. Doxing is something that should
can get somebody killed.
Jokes can be an iffy one to navigate.
As an important part of building the org is making sure it is inclusive for all members. This is something I've lived by for a long time, and part of making sure an org is inclusive is to make sure its top members are mindful and respectful. On top of what was elaborated in part 2, members of the leadership have not always been particularly the most mindful with jokes and speech, from inappropriate jokes to inappropriate profile flair. A lot of jokes made by people near the top are toxic at best. What? Please... This is the other thing, and I'm going to show my political side a little bit. Who determines what's toxic? Who determines what's hate speech? Who determines it? because the line is different for everybody. So you cannot have a hard line in the sand saying this is toxic, this is hate speech, because everybody's version of it is different. If you are uncomfortable with it, say something. If you are uncomfortable with it, leave the Discord. If you are uncomfortable with it, turn off the game. If you're uncomfortable with it, turn off global chat. That's how this works. Who determines what's toxic and what's hateful? Because what I determine is toxic and hateful is not what other people determine as toxic and hateful. And no one person should make the rules when it comes to being toxic and hateful within a game. Yes, racial slurs should not be allowed. Slurs of any kind shouldn't be allowed. But outside of that, me telling you to eat a dick because you shot me down in my hangar should not be considered toxic. But other people will consider that toxic. They'll say that is toxic language or hateful language. It's not. It's me just expressing my emotions about something that happened. It's not toxic. But like I said, who determines what's toxic and what's hateful? Because once you start determining what's toxic and hateful, the ball is going to just keep on rolling and more things are going to be considered toxic and hateful. It'll just keep adding on and adding on and adding on and adding on, and it will never stop.
Intent should be applied when moderating jokes as humor is subjective.
Yes,
While
it's subjective.
I agree, jokes can be made in bad taste.
That's the thing. You don't go, and like, I don't understand this new thing that's been happening at comedy clubs where people think it's okay to heckle and try to cancel a comedian. If a comedian is there, their job is to entertain you and make you laugh. And sometimes those jokes are going to be on the edge. You know what? Don't laugh then. Don't laugh. But for you to stand up and try to, you know, cancel this person because they made a couple of off-color jokes doesn't make you any more right than they are. I was told Grief Renat are sociopaths, but then you hear someone like Carl speak. I had the same thing with Stranger Danger, and then I listened to him. I never encountered them before. A lot of the people that PvP and do griefer things, they're nice people. And if you take the time to talk to them, not only are they genuinely nice people, not all, but a lot of them, they'll even tell you how they do their PvP, how to get better at PvP, why they do the things that they do. And a lot of time, it has nothing to do with them making somebody feel bad or trying to keep them from playing the game. It's just because they find it entertaining. Now, that being said, if you're following somebody around the servers and keep constantly harassing them, then yes, I do view that as griefing because you're stopping them from playing the game in any meaningful way. I do think you should reach out to the server and be like, hey, this guy keeps killing me over and over again over at Port Tressler. Can I get a little bit of backup and deal with it in a PvP way? But, you know, once again, I have thicker skin than most, so it seems, so that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. It just doesn't. It never really has. When I first started playing the game, yeah. Once I understood the game, no, it doesn't bother me anymore.
Humor isn't about causing harm for people and should be taken as something to brush off in most cases. It's obvious when something is meant to be a joke and when it's being disguised as one. It's the responsibility of the individual hearing the joke to decide if that's something they want to be around. Fair enough if you want to leave. That doesn't justify this letter, and it should be an internal matter. As someone who suffers from mental health issues, I use dark humor as a coping mechanism. Sure, I've experienced resistance to such jokes, but educating the offended person on my intentions and that I don't...
Look, I also, you know, I'm not going to say I understand and what Carl's mental health issues are. I'm not going to say I understand that. I use dark humor a lot. And it's more or less for me to relieve what I feel is my internal stress. So, you know, if you ever hear me tell a joke like, why did the dead baby cross the road? Because it was stapled to the chicken, and I think it's hilarious. It's not because I'm trying to offend you. It's not because I'm trying to get you to get mad at me because I'm some sort of dark joker or something like that. It's just because it's a way for me to relieve some stress. I've seen a lot of terrible things in my life. And if I sit here and just dwell on the terrible things that I've seen, heard, and in some points done, I would not have a very good outlook on life. So I use dark humor and humor to kind of outlet that sort of stuff. I do a good job of not doing it on stream, but if you were to know me on a personal level, I have a lot of dark humor, and I find certain things funny. And like I said, it's not because I'm an awful human being. That's just how I get rid of the stress. I won't get into it too much, but my dad saw a lot of things, a lot of bad things over the 35 plus years of being in the kind of career that he was in. The man doesn't cry at funerals anymore. He never really cried at funerals. He would have to excuse himself from funerals because he would laugh, not because he found it funny, but that was the way his body and his mind dealt with the stress of the situation that was going on. So he really, really can't cope with that, so he doesn't cry. He laughs. And he's even said he doesn't have control of it anymore. It just happens. And he starts laughing, and he laughs hysterically, and he can't turn it off. So, I was at I won't get into who, what, and why, but I was at a funeral with him. He had to cover his face and excuse himself from the church. That's what he had to do. And it wasn't because he's trying to be a jerk. It's just how he handles the stress and pain. So, that's just it. I get that, Mr. E. I get it. I mean, I kind of do it too, to a point.
Don't mean offense is generally the route I take. If you don't laugh, you cry. Not
Exactly.
banning multiple members of an org isn't.
As usual, the rot starts at the head. All the talk about leaders' toxic behavior and other other members is problematic. Sure, but most of the problems stem from the highest level of the org. It can be inaction or on banning known members of GrieferNet or running things like a dictatorship. All problems can be tracked back to one fault. I want to make myself clear, this is not just a minor grievance in any way the org has been run. I fully believe leadership has fully broken down, and there's nothing in place to keep members safe any longer. So all of this is coming down because 2 members of GrieferNet are in their org. It's not against the rules to be part of 2 orgs. You can be in as many orgs as you want. What this person is doing, and I can't highlight it, he's focusing on this part right here. Now, I've dealt with both inside and outside of the game, on YouTube and off of YouTube, a couple of members of GrieferNet. I'm not going to name their names, and they're pretty decent people. They've been nice to me. They've been nice to the people I hang out with. They've pointed out when I was being a dickhead to one of their members, and their member was being a dickhead to me. And like I said, that was resolved. But, people would say all the guys from PAX are a bunch of assholes, and they just salt mine. But if you were to reach out to them and say, hey, I suck at PvP and I want to learn, I guarantee you they're going to take you right in. They're going to be like, here's our training program. Here are the people that train, blah, blah, blah. Do this, do that. Here you go. Let's take Jonathan Winters, for example. If you watch some of his earlier streams when he first started, guess what he was doing? Murder hoboing. But if you reached out to him in chat, you reached out to him in his YouTube stream, and you said, hey, I suck at PvP, I need help, he would actually bring you on stream, tell you where to meet, he would duel you, and then tell you, stop. These are the things you need to work on. Here's my Discord. Here's the people you need to get in contact with. Here you go. Try to get better. I'm trying to think of some other groups that I've been around that have been like that, but a lot of them are like that. Chaos Squad. Chaos Squad, for example, they do pirating. They're pretty good at it. They have a pretty good leadership. They have pretty good people within their ranks. And if you reach out to them and say, hey man, I want to try pirating. I want to pirate. Same goes for Blackjack's crew. Hey, you want to join us and learn how to do pirating? We'll bring you right in. We'll teach you how to do it. Well, and all of that, granted, they're not going to bring you into the inner circle and let you know all the things that are going on within their org if you just joined. But guess what? They'll bring you to ops. They'll help you out. They'll teach you what they're doing, explain why they're doing it, and then help you out. But there's never a reason to just hate these people because of the name. Yes, GrieferNet has a reputation, but so far, what I have seen and what I've heard versus what I've seen them do is it's not the same. Am I defending them for doing what they're doing? No, because once again, I think they edge right up to the line and sometimes go a little bit over it. But I'm going to tell you, if you've played this game for longer than a year and a half, you walk up to that line and you edge over that line sometimes too. So I don't want to hear it.
Toxic. It's a tough decision made by leadership who often weigh both sides of the argument to create the most desired outcome. Just because you don't like something, it doesn't make it toxic. The word toxic gets thrown around all too often as a way to defend someone's morals, but morals vary from country to country and culture to culture.
Yep.
This could definitely be argued to be a power grab.
I didn't start this with the intent to make it any longer than a single page. My bad there, but here I'd like to talk about the future. My fear is writing this with an invite to a separate org, which will be attached to the DM of this document. For those I trust and want to get out, will be viewed as a power grab, so I want to make one thing clear. Alpha Flight Initiative, while founded by me, is not solely run by me. I pick leadership members from current and former members of the Lunar Eclipse I know I can trust to keep people safe. No decisions are unilateral there. I do not retain more power than any of them. The plan is to always have an odd number of staff at the top, so there's always a council to decide things first. But more importantly, while we are technically a group of gamers, the goal is to keep our members safe no matter what. What is safe? Like, here's what is safe? You're in a video, pardon my French, you're in a fucking video game. Unless somebody's doxing you, what is unsafe about Star Citizen? What is unsafe about Star Citizen? Can somebody please explain that to me? If you're not getting doxed, what is unsafe in Star Citizen? What is unsafe in any goddamn game? Like, I don't understand this. This boggles my mind. Like, what? What is so violent within a video game that it makes you curl up into a little ball and lay on the ground in a fetal position and write 5-page letters saying I'm leaving an org because a couple of people in there I disagree with? Oh, boo-hoo. Go get fucked. Like, seriously. Where did I leave off? But more importantly, while we were technically a group of gamers, safe, my personal belief is that based on the faith I have in users receiving this document, we could thrive together. While I have lost faith in the leadership of Lunar Eclipse at the highest levels, I have never for a moment lost faith in the members of the org. You are why I've stayed several months where I really questioned in my time there was worth it, and I hope to see you in the verse going forward. This is where we say our goodbyes. No, you'll always have a place among us if you wish to join us. Oh, my dear God. And like I said, unless they're doxing you, what is unsafe about a video game? What like, okay, there might be flashing lights that cause seizures. Outside of that, what is so unsafe about a video game? Dude, the Care Bears, Mr. E, yeah, it's a resignation letter. The Care Bears in this game, in my opinion, are the most toxic people in this game. Every time, and I don't like using the word toxic. I've said it multiple times live on stream. I hate using that word. The most of the time, I see the worst posts, the worst comments in global chat, the worst replies, the most coming together and absolutely ruining an event or somebody's good time or brigading somebody's YouTube channel or anything like that. It's the Care Bears. It's the Care Bears.
Just because there's multiple people at the top, it doesn't...
And just because I say the word Care Bear and you don't like to PvP and you don't like to be around people and things like that, that doesn't mean you're a Care Bear. Being a Care Bear is, at least in my opinion, the way I describe it, is somebody that wants to be completely left alone, not play with anybody, be along his merry business, and play in an MMO sandbox like this where anything goes, and then when they get shot at, they rage harder than Rage Against the Machine at a corporate event. That's to me as a Care Bear.
Doesn't mean one can't hold sway over the others. Poaching definitely happened, at least.
Poaching
Evident
happened
by the Discord link being posted with this letter. Poaching is definitely a power play. The fact that the leadership of AFI accepted the person who did the recording completely destroys their credibility here. If AFI were that against recordings being made,
exactly.
they should not have been allowed to
That's
join.
a good way to put it.
Why should we trust anything they have to say when they contradict themselves like this? If you want my opinion, AFI leadership have resorted to lies in order to poach members of another org. The leadership clearly want to usurp the org under a different name. This is evident by the fact that their Discord was made back in August and the split was announced to have been in January. This was a planned and coordinated attack on LE. However, the plan has more holes in it.
That's kind of how I viewed it. Is this person with their letter, and I didn't know about the dates, but this person with this letter, this was a coordinated way to try to pull members away and build their own org. And I think that's kind of, if you have issues with an org, just say, hey, I have issues going on. I don't like the way things are being run. So for me, this is goodbye. And I would move on. And I'd make my own org or join another org. I would not leave a 5-page discourse or my paper, my tenure paper for my retirement and say I'm leaving and then leave an invite down at the bottom. That's just wrong. That's just wrong.
And Swiss cheese.
Ooh. There's some good stuff here. Damn it, I can't scroll up. Carl, looking into both your current and previous orgs due to screenshots being sent my way. Read your open letter and it's intriguing. Would you be willing to talk about it all? Thanks for your time. Not interested in doing any kind of interview. This wasn't for power or publicity like is trying to make it out to be. If it was, I wouldn't be giving 6 other people the same amount of power as me. So they are super, super hyped up on the word power. They need power. They have to have power. They have to have power. They have to run it the way they want. Power. Yes, it was a broken middle finger goodbye letter. There was no grand conspiracy. I joined Lunar Eclipse in 2021, loved the people, but after a blow up months ago that caused members to leave, created a backup in the event, he nuked the org. I only decided it was time to separate. After discussions with several staff members who also agreed he wasn't fit to lead, that vote of no confidence would likely result in him dissolving the org or just banning everyone who disagreed with me. Conspiracy, you have me at the disadvantage. I'm saying there's no juicy story, no grand conspiracy. There were disagreements on how the org was structured by the staff, so we separated. End of story. So I'm sorry you're looking for some deep story, but there isn't one. Haven't seen or said anything about a conspiracy. Not sure where that's coming from. I didn't say it, you did. I'm just saying there's nothing interesting here. It's just very dry. At the end of the day, it's an exodus of an org, so there will be stuff under the surface. I don't want you to get into that. Happens in every org. But I have this question. Why are you using GN as a scapegoat for your reasons of leaving? If you actually read the letter, you'd know that only 2 of the 5 sections were about that, and the other 3 were not. Griefernet was mentioned all throughout the letter 8 times. 8 whole times across 3 pages. And each time it was brought up as part 2, referencing that on top of these issues outlined above. Anyone that reads that letter without trying to look at it like that will see that the whole point is establishing a pattern of shady behavior from bleh. And Griefernet was not scapegoat, however much you all want it to be. Your reason for leaving is based on 2 members of Griefernet being in there. Then you claim it's not, while claiming it is, while also claiming that it's because of blah. Are you saying you lied in the letter? Woohoo! That is at best a misinterpretation of what I said. Already aware that you are just someone trying to make me look bad here. I tried to chat with you in good faith. But if you can't manage to do the same, this is over. I've read your Twitter bio, and I know you're part of Griefernet. Ooh. I just report what I see. Way to handle that one, Carl. Now, if you really want to be blatantly dishonest with your read on things, I'm just going to block you and move on with my life. Ooh, struck a nerve, Curl. Curl. Coral. Starting to sound like Rick Grimes. Struck a nerve there, Carl. I'm not trying to make you look bad. I'm just pointing out your discrepancies. Looked like a smear, no evidence, just all your own words. Kind of like accusing me of being a conspiracy where I joined Lunar Eclipse to do this, even though I joined Lunar Eclipse a year before the backup org was ever made. Now we're done here. Ooh. Exactly, JT.
I don't understand anything that's going on there, and it makes me so... The whole GrieferNet thing, I don't get it. I have no fucking idea what's going on, and all these like weird things that are happening.
Well, that was, well, it was juicy. I think Carl brought up a couple of really good points. I think, look, if you're going to do certain things like this with your org, or excuse me, creating a new org, there's a certain level of, how I read it was this guy wanted power, and was willing to smear other people as well as leadership within his own org to gain that power. And that's, to me, what it all seemed like. It was just power, power. So maybe you guys have a different take on it than I do, but that's how I read it.